Sound speeds, and welcome back to Speed Bumps. This is episode 17. Now you may say, you're not on a film set today, are you? Well, no, because as of the time of this video, I am recording this on the drive home from teaching a real-world sound class. This is the union building, my union building, I should say, the union that I'm a member of. It is a building that they own. It's a really nice sized building too, and it's got a great facility. We just got through teaching an audio class there today. So it was a class on plant microphones, and that was all well and good. Missed the green light. So that means I'm gonna have to slow down and actually catch this. But as soon as it turns green, we will go forward. Now, what is new about this episode? Well, in the last episode, I had the camera more up here in front of me looking down. I'm trying more of closer to the same angle that I usually come in at, which is more from the side. Now, it is a little bit higher than normal, but because we have a 360 camera, it's going to hopefully have a little bit of a better view of the front of the car. I don't know until I get into post if, like, for example, this little part right here, if you're able to see that and it's obscuring the view too much. It is literally on the side of my mirror, so I don't know if it's going to be good to have where it is right now, or if it's better to have up here and looking high down on me. We'll figure it out. Tell me in the comments below what you think about this particular angle, because I'm still kind of on the fence about what I want to do and how I want to do it. What I do know is that it is daylight today, and so it's a pretty good opportunity for me to shoot in daylight driving home, putting this Insta360 X3 camera to work. And just as always, I'm using a Shure Twinplex TL47 going into the DAD BPTRX in record only mode for my sound. Hopefully it will sound good. So without further delay, I think we should go ahead and get to our questions, which I should add, I would like to get some questions from viewers. Good. I would like to get some questions from viewers happening, but since I'm not getting a whole lot of them right now via email, I am starting to take them from people in the real world that were in my classes. I said, hey, if there's a question you want me to answer in Speed Bumps, by all means, tell me. So I am answering those questions today. So the first topic I was asked about was, what do you do about airplanes and car honks and stuff like that when you're recording and you're doing sound? What do you end up doing? How do you get around that when you get to post? Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward process because we do multiple takes for number one. It's not the kind of thing where we do one take and then say, well, that's kind of the way it is. We're going to have to deal with that. And I mean, there may be a certain show that you do where you only get a single take, but for the most part, you get multiples. And so if there is something that happens on multiple takes, usually you address it. If there's an airplane that suddenly takes off and that's on take one, and then on take two, it comes by and it's the same exact timing, you might want to time things differently. Most of the time, what will happen, for example, is if you're shooting near an airport and you constantly are hearing airplanes going overhead, instead of rolling, once it gets quiet, when they say, okay, let's wait for an airplane to pass. Okay, now it's quiet, now let's roll sound. As opposed to doing that, what you might end up doing is rolling sound while the plane is still overhead, holding for just a second, and then say, now can we call action? That way you're saying action at the point where it's quiet. That's usually one of the big ways. You have to kind of work with the first AD to time things a little bit differently. That's a big one right there. If you're doing multiple takes, you have a better chance of getting it. Now, if the director gets really excited about one particular take, saying, oh, that's the one, I really love that one, and that was no good for sound, then you can go and tell them that it was a little rough. But for the most part, post is able to actually piece together sound from different takes. It's one of the reasons why we're able to do wild lines and then slip them right in. Now, provided the performance hasn't changed and the audio matches. That's a big thing, is if actors do every single take differently, then it could be problematic from a matching perspective. But most of the time, actors are pretty consistent. Well, I shouldn't say most of the time, it kind of depends, really. But there are many times that actors are consistent, and it doesn't matter if you're doing a take that is that an actor is doing a take where they're delivering a line and then there's a slight variation or there's a line change or something like that. As long as you get it more or less the same way as it was in other takes, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape. It's only really going to be an issue when this take was yelling, the next take was talking normal, the next take was sounding disturbed, the next one was excited, the next one was really sad. And you mix it up, and the director really likes one of those. And the director really likes, let's not move over now. Sorry, traffic, you gotta love it. I should pay attention. There we go, now we're gonna move over. So the director, if the director is pretty consistent about their performances and they like the same kind of performance, or they do a safety, and you got the take, technically you should be okay when it gets into post. Now there are some times when you're gonna say, you might want to mention it to the director and say, now if that's the one you're really happy with, we really don't have anything to match that. And in that case, then some of the things you can do would be to ask, would you like to do another one for sound? They might even like that one better. And some people were like, don't ever ask for one for sound. But you can also say, if you like that performance, would you want to do a safety? Because it wasn't great for sound, it would be great if you wanted to do it again. If they say no, say, then fine, can we do it wild? If you want to roll a take wild, that means camera's not involved, you're just doing the lines for sound based on the performance they just did. The reason you don't want to do wild lines later, and I covered this in my video about wild lines, but the reason you don't want to do wild lines as just ADR a month and a half later is because they've already dialed in their performance now, they know how they delivered the lines, it's best to record now, not at the end of the day, 7 hours later, 8 hours later, 10 hours later, once everything is, they're just wanting to leave for the day. Do it at the end of the scene right now, so that way they're going to be at their ideal performance and they know the way it should sound and it should feel. So that's going to be a much better circumstance for you to get wild lines. And also, everything is going to match acoustically. If you just got through doing a take from 3 minutes ago to right now, it's going to sound much closer than it would be if you came back 7 hours later and the insects are now different outside, the weather or the flight path has changed or whatever. So those are a couple of things you can do if there's a spot chance of a certain sound getting in the way. Usually though, if there's one or two sounds that happen in the middle of the take that is not ideal, what post can do, if it's something quick like a horn, they can pull in certain syllables from another take, or pull in an entire line, stretch it and do whatever they need to fit it in there and slip it in there where it needs to be. It may be one syllable, it may be a word, it may be a bit of a few words, whatever. But they'll figure it out in post, provided you give them the tracks clean. For our second topic in this video, we're going to talk about batteries. There's two main types of batteries that we involve ourselves with in the sound department, 9 volts and AA's. Let's start with 9 volts. 9 volts, if you want to use disposables, because you're completely convinced that buying a battery that you're going to throw away after a single use is the best option out there, then you're going to want to stick to lithiums. Now, there are different brands of lithiums that people swear by. What I usually tell you to get, and tell people to get, the one, I'll put a couple of pictures up there, and there's links down in the description of any of these videos, these batteries that I'm talking about. But the Power, oh geez, my brain just fizzled on this. Was it Power X Power, something like that? I forgot what it is now. Are probably my favorite ones right now. 9 volts are not created equal. They're sometimes even sized differently. So if you get a battery that is a little bit bigger than another one, and that does happen. Some batteries are slightly larger. Even if it's like a 32nd of an inch bigger, it's not going to fit properly in a transmitter, some transmitters, and it might end up jamming and you have to like shake it or hit it on something to get it out, believe it or not. And that's not a good situation to be in. But if you're going to get a battery, you want to make sure that it is slightly one of the smaller ones that can fit inside of a transmitter just fine. And there are really good ones out there, and it costs a couple of dollars per 9 volt battery. But if you want to try to save the planet, I'll tell you this, rechargeables have come a long way in the past few years. It used to be that they might only last 2 or 3 hours. Now they're lasting, 7 hours sometimes, up to 7 hours. Now the big thing to keep in mind about when you get a rechargeable is it's not about the voltage anymore, it's about the milliamp hours. Because you're going to use milliamp hours, and the more you have, the longer your transmitter is going to last. And the voltage may not be as high as it is on a lithium. Like if you buy a lithium 9 volt, it might actually be closer to 1 volt lower for a rechargeable than it would be if you had yourself a disposable. But the advantage to that is that the milliamp hours are quite a bit longer, so it's going to maybe meter lower on a meter, but it's going to last a period of time simply because the batteries are designed to, from a milliamp hour standpoint. Lithium polymer is usually the way to go when it comes down to lithium 9 volts. That is usually what we go to in the film industry. And there's a few different options available. I would usually say stick yourself, as of the time of this video at least, to no less than 700 milliamp hours. There are some that are down to like 270 milliamp hours, some are 540. Usually the minimum of 700 is what I say to stick to. I usually like to see the ones closer to 800 or more because it means you're going to have more time out of it when you need it. Most of the time you want to try to have a battery that will last a good 6 hours. That way it lasts an entire morning. Now you may say, Alan, I don't wire up Talent until 30 minutes after call time, so any battery that's going to last at least 5.5 hours should be fine. Technically that's true, but what if you end up taking a meal penalty to finish a scene or even go into grace? It might be one of those things where it would be nice to have a little bit of extra battery life right there at your fingertips if and when you need it. So that's 9 volt batteries. Let's talk about AA's. Now, if you watch my video on the Movo, what is that system? The Duo 20 WNX 20 Duo, something like that. Whatever that video is, it's listed right up there if you want to check it out. In that video, I talk about batteries, and I do measure battery life in certain transmitter, in the transmitters in that video. Now, your results may vary depending on what transmitters you're using, how many batteries you have in that kind of thing. Zaxcom has has different battery consumption than Electrosonics, which is different than Audio Limited, which is different than Sound Devices, even though you could say they're the same. Well, Audio Limited was different at the time, which is different than Wizzycom. So, I mean, it just really depends on the battery, and it depends on the transmitter as to how long it's going to last. As a general rule, though, there is one disposable AA battery that is the default that you go to, and that is the Ultimate Lithium. The Ultimate Lithium is the main one you use for AA's. Now, what about rechargeables? Well, when it comes down to rechargeables, you may say, well, that's easy. Lithium polymer, right? No. How about lithium ion? Nope. Yes, there are rechargeable lithium ions and lithium polymers, but that's not what you want in the world of 9 volt batteries. You want nickel metal hydride. Now, nickel metal hydride batteries are going to be lower voltage. Usually, if you buy a disposable 9 volt battery, they're going to be around 1.78, like an Ultimate Lithium would be around 1.68, 1.78. It used to be 1.78. Actually, I think there was even a time it used to be 1.88, but now it's at least a good couple of volts over 1.5. And the reason why is because once you put it into a load, that voltage is going to drop. But with lithiums, the decay, it drops a little bit as soon as you first power up the transmitter. It will drop a little bit, then it levels off and goes slightly down, and then just falls off at the end. That's its battery life. So it maintains its voltage. It drops a little bit initially, and then it flattens out and basically slightly goes down until the voltage falls off really abruptly. That's different than it is in the world of rechargeables. The voltage maintains its consistency, but it's milliamp hours, yet again, that you need to watch. Now, the most, as of the time of this video, that you're really going to run into is somewhere just under the 3,000 mark. You're going to run into like the IKEA Lotta batteries, which are probably my favorite ones because you can get 4 of them for $10, and they're going to last many times. And those, I think, are about 2,900 milliamp hours. Now, there's also the one that a lot of people will swear by because the number is the highest, is the Panasonic Inloop Pro, the black ones, at least black as of the time of this video. And those, I think, are 2,950. So those will last a long period of time too. Now, is it going to last longer than the IKEAs? Well, it's a toss-up. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if you're starting out buying these batteries, definitely go with the IKEA because they are so much better than the price indicates that they should be. For $2.50 a battery, you're able to get yourself some great batteries that are going to last many recharges, and they're going to last just as long as anything else out there, if not more. Now, again, in that video where I tested batteries, I did talk about the difference between them and tested the battery life of them in the transmitter. So definitely revert back to it in this video. As a matter of fact, I'll clip just that one part and I'll put it in a separate little video right here that you have to see either in this video now or watch at the end of this video, because it's going to be unlisted. So you're not going to see it and it's not going to be searchable or anything like that. So unless somebody posted online or you happen to save the URL or something like that, you're not going to be able to find it unless you watch this video. But that's a little bit about batteries, what batteries you would want to get and when you would want to use what. Like, by that I mean rechargeables versus disposables. Usually I would say that rechargeables have come a long way in the past few years. It used to be that rechargeables would only last a few hours, like 2 or 3. Now they're lasting quite a bit longer, rivaling the ultimate lithiums. They really are. So I would say save the planet and get yourself into a rechargeable battery workflow, because it is actually a very, very good investment and it's worth it. So there you have it, episode 17 of the Speed Bumps podcast. And even though it's overcast, you're still able to see me much better than it would be if we were to record at night. And thanks to my new workflow in DaVinci Resolve and their advanced color correcting methods, we're able to get some great colors going in this episode. So thank you again for tuning into this episode of the Speed Bumps podcast. And be sure to watch again in the future episodes for me talking about more tips and tricks in sound, and of course answering questions if any of them happen to come in. But as always, there's going to be even more sound advice.
If you'd like to ask a sound-related question to be answered in a future episode, send text, audio, or video to ssp@soundspeeds.us. Want to record this outro? Details in the description below. Find us on social media and online at www.soundspeeds.us. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more sound-related content.